Welcome. Well, for today's video, I'm going to check out a classic for the beginning of the year, and we're going to begin with The Wolfman. The Wolfman is a 1941 American Gothic horror film written by Kurt Siodmak and produced and directed by George Wagner. The film is the second Universal Pictures werewolf film, which preceded 6 years earlier by Werewolf of London in 1935. So basically, this is the film that started it all. The titular character has had a great influence on Hollywood's depiction of the werewolf legend, and the Wolfman is also one of 3 Universal Studio monsters that isn't based on a book. And in case you're wondering, the others are the Mummy and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And you can probably guess why I'm checking this one out with that new one coming out soon. So without further ado, let's check it out. The film begins with the title card, followed by the opening credits showing the main cast of the film. Then we see somebody open an encyclopedia and finds an article on lycanthropy, followed by a short description of the events we're about to see. And we meet our protag of the film, Larry Talbot, played by Lon Chaney Jr., son of legendary actor Lon Chaney Sr., the man of 1,000 faces, which also includes the Phantom of the Opera. Anyways, Larry returns to his ancestral home in Wales to bury his recently deceased brother and reconcile with his estranged father, Sir John Talbot, played by Claude Rains, who I know from classics like The Invisible Man, Casablanca, and Lawrence of Arabia. Anyways, Larry is greeted by his old childhood friend, Captain Paul Montford, played by Ralph Bellamy, the chief constable of the district. Soon after Paul leaves, Sir John apologizes for being so distant, as it took the death of Larry's brother to bring them both together. And to make up for it, they bond as they use a telescope to see the town. Larry then plays with the telescope and sees a local girl named Gwen Conlift, played by Evelyn Ankers, who runs an antique shop. And of course, he likes what he sees and takes a trip to the antique shop to meet Gwen in person. And he even asks for earrings as a gift, but a very specific pair.
What I'm really looking for is something half-moon shaped with spangles on it, golden.
Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't any like that just now.
Oh, yes, you have. Don't you remember? On your dressing table up in your room.
Hey, yo! That's fucking sus.
Larry then decides to purchase a pimp cane, one decorated with a silver wolf's head with a pentagram, which Gwen tells him that it represents a werewolf, and she recites a poem for it.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Oh, and get used to that because you're going to hear that a lot in this film.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night
may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
That's funny. That's the same thing the girl in the antique shop said.
Anyways, Gwen firmly refuses Larry's persistent proposals for a date, even stating that she is to be engaged.
But it's only fair to tell you I'm engaged. I'm going to be married very soon.
But despite that, they meet each other later that night at the proposed time.
I told you I couldn't go out with you.
And yet you wore those earrings that I like.
That was just because I...
Oh, come on.
See that? 50 no's and a yes means yes.
However, they are joined by Gwen's friend, Jenny, played by Faye Helm, to go to have their fortunes told by Romani fortune teller Bella, played by Dracula himself, Bela Lugosi. While waiting their turn, Larry and Gwen take a stroll through the fog. Back with Jenny, Bella sees a pentagram when he examines Jenny's poem, and frantically sends her away, followed by a howl. And here's a not so fun fact about the pentagram part. That was inspired by a real life tragedy, as Kurt Siodmak saw how the Nazis would brand Jewish citizens with the Star of David marking them for death. Then both Larry and Gwen hear Jenny's screams, and Larry runs off to help, only to find her being attacked by a wolf, who was played by a stray dog that got adopted by Chaney himself. Anyways, Larry attempts to rescue Jenny and kills the wolf with his pimp cane, but is bitten on the chest. Gwen finds the injured Larry and calls for help from Maliva, played by Maria Openskaya, who helps them and takes Larry to the castle. Then the police investigate the scene, only to find Chaney's throat torn out and Bella battered to death with Larry's pimp cane. And suspicion on Larry deepens when he cannot prove his story of fighting a wolf since his chest wound miraculously healed overnight.
Oh, but they're treating me like I was crazy.
Luckily, Sir John has an explanation for the scene of the crime.
A dog or a wolf attacked Jenny Williams. That's proven. When she cried for help, Larry and Bela went to her rescue. It was dark. Excitement and confusion, the gypsy was killed.
That's some old bullshit.
And Dr. Lloyd agrees, but Munford is not satisfied. Furthermore, the fact that Larry and Gwen were not with Jenny raises suspicions of adultery, especially from Jenny's mother.
She didn't do anything wrong.
Anything wrong? It's because of her that my little Jenny was killed.
Now, that's enough.
She's to blame. I always knew that innocent little face was just a
Now, come on, outside all again.
You'll not get rid of me before I know the truth.
What a bitch.
Yeah, although Gwen's fiance, Frank Andrews, played by Patrick Knowles, believes in their innocence, his dog does not.
You'd better take him outside, Frank.
All right, come on.
That's fucking sus.
Back in town, Larry is present when Bella's casket is brought into the church for services. And before he can examine the body, the minister and Maliva enter the church and recites this.
Your suffering is over, Bela, my son. Now you will find peace.
After she leaves, Larry pays his respects to Bella. And later that night, both Gwen and Frank run into Larry at the Romani Carnival, and the two walk over to the target shooting booth. Larry does well until a wolf figure pops up on the board.
Go ahead and shoot before he bites you. Bad luck.
Distraught, Larry walks over to the encampment and encounters Maliva. She reveals to Larry that the wolf which bit him was indeed Bella, and now Larry is cursed to turn into a werewolf too. She also reveals that silver is the only thing that can kill a werewolf.
A werewolf can be killed only with a silver bullet, or a silver knife, or a stick with a silver handle.
Huge steaming ball of foreshadowing.
Maliva even gives Larry a charm to prevent the transformation, which is surprising because she doesn't even give that to her own son. Kinda sus if you think about it. Larry, uncertain whether or not to believe Maliva, instead gives the charm to Gwen for protection. And word spreads around the Romani about the werewolf, so they pack up and leave. Then Larry reflects on the events of the past with a montage.
Oh, Christ!
And after that shit, Larry runs home and begins to transform into a werewolf. And not gonna lie, this looks like something Tarantino would shoot. And we finally get to see the Wolfman himself in all his glory. And fun fact, the makeup was done by legendary makeup artist Jack Pierce, who also did the makeup for Frankenstein and the Mummy. And this particular werewolf design was originally made for the film Werewolf of London, but actor Henry Hall rejected it because he wanted to be recognizable in the makeup. Moreover, the process for the Wolfman makeup was a pain in the ass, as Chaney had to deal with burnt yak hair as Jack Pierce applied it piece by piece for 6 hours.
Well, that sucks.
Anyways, the Wolfman is prowling around a cemetery and kills a gravedigger, in which it howls in celebration, waking up the townsfolk. Montfort investigates with Twiddle and 3 other men, only to find wolf prints. The next morning, Larry wakes up in bed with no memory of his rampage, but he finds a half-assed pentagram on his chest. Then Sir John, along with Dr. Lloyd and the authorities, believe the killings to be the work of a wolf, but Larry disagrees.
It isn't a wolf.
What do you mean?
It's a werewolf.
Werewolf?
Well, duh.
However, Dr. Lloyd believes that lycanthropy is just a mental disorder, and regardless of the culprit being a werewolf or not, both Frank and Paul leave to organize a hunting party and set traps. Then, Dr. Lloyd tells Sir John that Larry should be sent out of the village, but Sir John believes that Larry staying in town is the best for his cure. And later that night, Larry turns into a werewolf again and is caught in one of the traps and is frantic to escape. Luckily, Maliva shows up and uses a spell, the same one she set to Bella, to temporarily change Larry back to human form, allowing him to free himself before a hunting party finds him.
Hello there. Stop. Come here. You. It's Master Larry.
What are you doing here, sir?
Why, the same thing that you are, of course, hunting.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Now convinced that he is a werewolf, Larry decides to leave town, but not before he makes a quick stop at the antique store to say goodbye to Gwen. However, he sees a pentagram on her palm and books it. Larry then tells his father that he is a werewolf and that he killed Bella and the gravedigger. But his father thinks Larry is delusional and ties him to a chair to prevent him from leaving and proving to him that he is not a werewolf. Larry then convinces him to take his pimp cane for protection as he leaves to join the hunting party. Later on, Sir John encounters Maliva, accusing her of messing with Larry's mind. She assures him that he should not fear the night as he has the silver pimp cane for protection. Then gunshots are heard and Sir John runs off. Then Maliva runs into Gwen as she is looking for Larry. Maliva warns her to stay out of the woods and begs Gwen to accompany her, but Gwen runs off. And furthermore, shit really hits the fan when the werewolf spots Gwen and attacks her.
Shit just went from 0 to 100 real fucking quick.
And by the way, Evelyn Ankers nearly fainted for real in this scene as she inhaled too much artificial fog. Anyways, luckily for Gwen, Sir John shows up and beats the living shit out of the wolfman with the old pimp cane.
Very bad feeling about this.
And after that ass whooping, Maliva arrives and again uses the spell, and Sir John watches in horror as the dead wolfman transforms back into Larry.
Now you will find peace for eternity.
What? What the fuck?
Then the hunting party show up and see the aftermath.
The wolf must have attacked her and Larry came to the rescue. I'm sorry, Sir John.
And that was The Wolfman. The film is considered a critical and commercial success, often cited as a classic within the Universal horror film series, and having a 91% in Rotten Tomatoes. And author and film critic Leonard Maltin awarded the film a 3.5 out of 4 stars, calling it one of the finest horror films ever made. The film was listed in the film reference book 1001 Films You Must See Before You Die, stating that the film remains the most recognizable and cherished version of the werewolf myth. The film was also credited for establishing the werewolf mythology and pop culture, with its story and theme still referenced in later werewolf films. And fun fact, Kurt Siedow actually made up a huge majority of the mythology, which includes being bitten by a werewolf and their weakness to silver. And after the film's success, Lon Chaney Jr. would reprise his role as the Wolfman in 4 sequels, beginning with Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, The House of Dracula, The House of Frankenstein, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Also, the Wolfman is the only Universal monster to be played by the same actor, and Lon Chaney Jr. would go on to play other Universal monsters like the Frankenstein monster, the Son of Dracula, and the Mummy. So with all that out of the way, now what do I think of the film? And yeah, I love it. Yeah, I will admit, the film itself isn't perfect, with some of the special effects looking horrible by today's standards. Not to mention Larry and Gwen's romance being creepy as hell when you think about it, and the side characters not being that interesting. But despite that, the film still has a lot going for it. For instance, Lon Chaney Jr.'s portrayal of Larry Talbot. Not only is he charismatic in the role, he's also sympathetic as he is forced to turn into this horrible monster. And not to mention, and I can see a lot of parallels between Chaney and his character, as both have a troubled relationship with their fathers. Also due to Chaney's alcoholism, he had his own monster to deal with. And as for supporting characters, Claude Rains' Sir John is pretty good. He is the most skeptical of the characters, as he doesn't believe in the werewolf myth, as he is a man of science.
She's been filling your mind with this gibberish. This talk of werewolves and pentagrams. You're not a child, laddie. You're a grown man, and you believe in the superstitions of a gypsy woman.
No, but the scar, the footprints in my room.
But he does ultimately believe that it is indeed real. I have to give a big shout out to Maria Openskaya in her portrayal of Maliva, as she is a very mysterious character, as she knows a lot about the werewolf curse, and she's very helpful as she not only gives exposition on the werewolf myth, she also helps out the characters like Larry in escaping the traps and ensuring their safety.
Go now, and heaven help you.
And Evelyn Anker's Gwen is pretty decent for the time. You might say that she's the typical love interest in these horror films. Like, she acted her ass off in this one because, according to behind-the-scenes sources, both Lon Chaney Jr. and Evelyn Ankers did not get along with each other, with Lon Chaney Jr. scaring her in the werewolf makeup. So yeah, I'd have to give her credit for that at least. And another person who deserves credit is Jack Pierce in achieving the iconic makeup for the Wolfman, as he's the reason why the Wolfman is a pop culture icon. And I have to say, the film is very atmospheric with its sets and the amount of fog that you see here. So overall, this film is a pretty good horror film. Sure, it's old as hell, but it's enjoyable as fuck. And honestly, who doesn't enjoy a good werewolf film every now and then? So I'll give this movie 4 out of 5 silver pimp canes. And that was the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this. And if you like my work, support the channel at Ko-Fi. There you can support me with as little as $1 a month, and you get to have your names in the credits. And if you do support me, I thank you very much, and I appreciate it very much. So stay safe out there. Oh, look at the time. Oh, we're having a full moon tonight, so I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
影分身の術
Does the prestige of your family name mean more to you than your son's health?
Oh, nonsense. The one way for him to get cured is to stay here and fight his way out of this.
That one didn't age quite so well.